What's up, Jet fans? In this video, I am going to do my off-season wish list. The off-season, the new league year is right around the corner, and I think it's actually in a week or less than a week. So, free agency is about to begin. I think that this is going to be a very interesting off-season. This is Muji's first full off-season, right? Like he had all of the regular season to prepare his off-season moves. So it's a big one, right? This I think will make or break Muji's career and probably Glenn's career as well. We have the fourth most cap space in the league, right? So if anyone is out there saying, oh, this player is too expensive, that player is too expensive, we should be able to outbid anyone on a pure money standpoint. If players want to play for winners, then we definitely have a disadvantage there. But if players are trying to get a big contract, we'll have the cap space to give them that big contract. The question is, should we? Right, that's the real question, and right, I don't disagree. We shouldn't just go out and free agency and buy all the best players, or supposed best players, right? Because then that screws you over in the long run. So I'm not advocating for that. I just want to point out we do have the fourth most amount of cap space. So basically, any move from a financial standpoint is a realistic move this offseason. And then, of course, before we get into what I think we should do, we need to talk about Aaron Glenn. I mean, this is like the hottest hot seat I've ever seen in my days of watching the NFL. He had a miserable season. We went 3-14. The entire league basically fired their head coaches, right? So the trend is firing your head coach. We didn't fire Glenn, but we got rid of basically his entire coaching staff. So, right, that tells you how hot his seat is. If we start out on a losing streak, he might be done in the middle of the season. I'm not advocating for that, mind you. I'm just saying from a thinking about a standpoint, he could be done. But I would actually say let Aaron Glenn do his thing. Right, I don't like meddling in the middle of a year. No team has ever done good when they fired their head coach in the middle of the year in the NFL, anyways. I feel like me maybe already meddled in his coaching staff already by forcing him to fire his coordinators, but we have some very interesting coordinators. Let Aaron Glenn run the show for a full year, so he'll have 2 full years, and then we can evaluate and probably fire him, but I would argue let's give him a fair shot, right? Let's give him as fair of a shot as we can, because we haven't given him a fair shot. I would say we already fired his entire coaching staff, but maybe that was his decision, honestly. But I seem to think that it was forced upon him, but who knows? And also another reason we shouldn't fire him, because if we fire him and then hire a new interim head coach, I think the math is we would have 5 head coaches in 3 years, 2 or 3 years, depending on when Aaron Glenn gets fired. And that is not a success. That is not a formula for success. So don't fire him in the middle of the year is what I'm advocating for if I had my wish list. And then lastly, I missed it, but Breece Hall, he got franchise tagged. And I think this is really good. He was one of the very few bright spots on the team. He played his heart out, even though he was not under contract. Let's get him under contract, right? A franchise tag is just a 1-year thing. Let's give him a contract. We have the cap space to do it. Even for people like me, for the fans, please let me have one recognizable face on this team. Right? I really think he should get a contract. Running back contracts aren't that massive, and like I said, we have the most amount of cap space, including the franchise tag, right? We used to have the 3rd most amount of cap space, and now we have the 4th most because we franchise tagged him. So let's get a long-term contract done. That's, I guess, one big wish I have on this offseason wish list. And then don't get scared of the picture. This is not a wish list. I just want to talk about the quarterback position for a second. And I think what we do at the quarterback position will tell us fans a lot if we're tanking or are we trying to win, right? We're not going to make the playoffs this year, no matter what we do at quarterback. Even if we trade for Joe Burrow, I don't think we're making the playoffs. So, but are we trying to be competitive? Are we trying to be a respectable football team? And what we do at the quarterback position will tell me a lot. If we go and get Kyler Murray, right? Kyler Murray's going to get cut, the Cardinals announced, which means that anyone can sign him for the veteran minimum, and he'll still get paid like his normal contract. So it only makes sense for him to sign a veteran minimum contract. So he's not expensive at all, right? I think a lot of the things that I would very much advocate against trading for him, because you would be trading with that giant contract. But now that it's announced that he's getting cut, signing him to a veteran minimum contract is not a stupid idea at all, right? I know he gets memed on. It's kind of like the Russell Wilson thing. When the Steelers signed Russell Wilson, it was for a minimum contract. That that was like a great move by them, in my opinion. And like from a pure evaluation standpoint, he's worth more than the veteran minimum, and you could get him on that. So I wouldn't hate if we signed him. I don't know if we will though. Right. And what I mean when I say what we do at the quarterback position will tell us what we're doing if we're trying to tank. A lot of that is because we put Brady Cook up as our starter for the last couple of games because we were trying to lose. I'm not saying the players were trying to lose, but the way the roster was built, the reason Brady Cook was playing and not Tyrod Taylor is because we thought Brady Cook was a worse quarterback. So are we going in with Brady Cook as our starting quarterback this year? That means we're trying to get 0-17. Or once again, there's Kyler Murray. He's a bit of a veteran at this point. Brady Cook, who's a young guy, but he's not very good. Or do we go after a young quarterback with a bunch of upside? I'm thinking like Malik Willis here. That's kind of what we did with Justin Fields, but I don't think he had as much upside. But right, the thing with these young quarterbacks with a lot of upside is you probably have to give them a big contract based off of hope, based off of the fact they have a big ceiling and that they're a big unknown. And Justin Fields, for a quarterback, he didn't get the biggest contract in the world, but he's getting paid a lot of money for not being that very good. So I don't think we would try this again, but it's a possibility. And then, do we draft a day 2 quarterback? I hope we don't draft a quarterback in the first round. No, none of these quarterbacks, except for maybe Fernando Mendoza, deserves to go in the first round. Certainly, no quarterback in this draft deserves to go number 2 anymore. But I really hope we don't draft a first round quarterback. But a day 2 quarterback is not the worst idea in the world. It could give us some hope. It could give us something to look forward to every Sunday. So that's a possibility. And to be honest, out of all of these things, I could agree with any of these, except for maybe putting Brady Cook in there again. And the reason I'm not mad at any of these ideas is because I don't need someone who can win games. I just need someone who can pass the ball and showcase the offense for evaluation purposes, right? Justin Fields, he didn't run at his best. When he was at his best, he wasn't running a normal offense, which because he's not a normal player. And so that makes sense. But right, even though Tyrod Taylor, he didn't win a whole lot of games for us, he could showcase the offense. He could let the team and us fans, but mostly the team, evaluate the other players on the offense, right? When Justin Fields was the quarterback, it was very hard to see, is the offensive line good? Is the offensive line bad? It was hard to see what wide receivers were good or bad because Justin Fields couldn't throw to them right. But Tyrod Taylor, even though he really wasn't winning that much more games than Justin Fields, he could kind of showcase the offense. He could show that some of the receivers that we traded for that were throw-in players had some sort of promise. So I just want a quarterback who's a bit of a known. So I guess I wouldn't want a young quarterback because they are too much of an unknown. I'd want some sort of veteran quarterback, whether that be Kyler Murray or someone with much smaller name than Kyler Murray. No height jokes. I just want a known entity who can then start letting the team evaluate the players around them, because there's going to be a lot of player turnover this year. There's going to be a lot of new faces on the team, and I just want to let the team be able to know who's good and who's not good. And that's very hard to do when you have a quarterback who, one, doesn't run a normal NFL system, or two just is always the problem, and they're the reason that nothing else happens, which then makes it impossible to evaluate anyone else. All that stuff was like set up slash kind of what we're doing in the offseason already. Now I want to get into some of my wish list stuff. And the first and foremost is we need a wide receiver too. The problem with needing a wide receiver too right now is this appears to be a very weak wide receiver free agency class. Like, there's either the big names in there have a lot of question marks on them, or they're kind of unknowns. That being said, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world that since we're building for the future, since we're not trying to win now, getting a wide receiver too who is a very small name, no one really knows who they are, a young wide receiver too that's a small name, and you could probably get on a cheaper deal, I don't think is the worst idea in the world. Obviously, you would need a couple of guys like that because then you would need to figure out who the wide receiver two is. But I wouldn't hate that at all. Getting someone who maybe we see more now as a wide receiver 3 or 4, but they're young and they could blossom into a wide receiver 2. And just based off of the percentages, you would want that to be a multiple people so then you can see who develops. But with a very weak wide receiver free agency class, I actually think the tight end class is a bit stronger. Older, definitely, more known entities, but I would say a bit stronger than the wide receiver class. And so then maybe getting a veteran tight end on this team is not the worst idea in the world. And so that is perhaps if we can't find a wide receiver too, a veteran tight end. We need pass catchers on this team. Right, lots of that was from the quarterback play, so that's what I'm talking about with the evaluation stuff. It's hard to figure out, did we just have terrible quarterback play, or did we have no weapons? Let's maybe kind of try to solve for both. And I think a veteran tight end would be the best way to do that, especially if we go the younger quarterback route. A tight end is a young quarterback's best friend, is the saying. They can make the young quarterbacks are good at making short passes, and tight ends are great at catching short passes. So there you go. I do just want to caution that these are some pretty old players. The big name players in this list are pretty old, but you sign them on a 1 or 2 year deal for them to then retire. We're not trying to compete in 1 or 2 years. We'll have a lot of cap space in 1 or 2 years, so it's not going to be that big of a problem. And believe it or not, that's actually my only offensive wish list. I think we're good enough at offensive line. Running back, we already got Breece Hall. So just a wide receiver too and a veteran tight end are my wish list. And then I could go either way, whatever we do with quarterback. Defense, though, and this is where it gets weird. I don't want to pick specific players. My wish list is I want to see Aaron Glenn bring in some of his guys. Last year, he was a rookie head coach, and he didn't do this, which is weird, but also not if you think about it. The reason he didn't do this is because we thought our defense was so good already. Remember, we had Quinnen Williams, we had Sauce Gardner, we had Robert Saleh's defense, who's now a head coach, by the way, a very hot head coach, but nevertheless, Aaron Glenn didn't bring in any of his guys because he thought our defense was good enough already. I think that was a mistake. Hopefully he knows that's a mistake. Let's bring in some of his guys, with the caveat that I'm fine spending big money in free agency, but short-term deals. Because I'm pretty sure Aaron Glenn is going to be gone after this year. I don't want to give all of his guys like 4-year deals, and Aaron Glenn is only here for 1 more year, because then that screws over the next guy. So if we need to bump up the amount of money in the contract for players to come here on shorter term deals, we have the cap space to do it. Let's do it. Let's let Aaron Glenn, let's give him a fair showing. Let's not hamstrung him too much, more than we already have. Let's see, now he's gotten rid of all the players that were on this team last year. Let's see him bring in his people. Let him kind of control who's being signed on the defensive side of the ball. And if it works, then great. Maybe Aaron Glenn is the head coach of the future. And if it doesn't, well, they're gone, and Aaron Glenn's gone within a year. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but I think that's what we should do. Remember, the amount of roster turnover we're going to have is going to be crazy. So we're already going to need just warm bodies at this point. So let Aaron Glenn pick those guys. Let him bring in his people that he knew from the Lions and all over the place that fit his system, and let him coach up his players, right? Because last year, everyone got worse. And maybe that was because of the new system. I don't know. I'm more inclined to believe it's because of Aaron Glenn. But I'm willing to be convinced otherwise, right? Let him bring in his people and let us actually see what he can do with his defense, a defense that he's going to have his fingers all over. All the players are going to be here because he wanted them. Let's see what he can do. And I hope, I'm not rooting against him. I hope it works out. But keep these contracts short, because if I was a betting man, I'd bet it's not going to work out. And now the NFL draft. For the number 2 overall pick, I think it's obvious we're going to take a highly acclaimed pass rusher. I like Arvell Reese since he plays like 2 positions, but that comes with a really huge ceiling, but also a really huge floor. And typically these in-betweener guys don't really work out. I like him as a fan because I think he's fun. He's fun to think about. Like Travis Hunter last year. Anyone who kind of plays 2 positions is really fun to think about because you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But I also, the analytical part of me also says, yeah, but that never works out. Even Travis Hunter, he got injured. So there's David Bailey, Ruben Bain. We can get anyone, right? Fernando Mendoza is going number 1. We can get the best player available. And once again, I'm going to caveat this with, in the free agency, all the free agents guys we sign, hopefully they're shorter term deals. Those guys can be Aaron Glenn's guy. Let Aaron Glenn pick who he wants. But when it comes to drafting, draft the best player available. Don't let, if the best player available isn't the same guy as the guy who we think will work best in Aaron Glenn's system, I say we draft best player available because chances are Aaron Glenn's gone next year. And then same thing with the 16th overall pick. I don't know who's going to be available, so I can't name a name. But once again, I really think best player available. And for the 16th overall pick, position to me doesn't even matter. Maybe not running back the 16th overall pick, but I can be convinced otherwise if we can't get a deal done with Breece Hall. Maybe the best player available is a running back. We have Breece Hall for 1 more year, and then the running back plays out the rest of his rookie contract. So just anyone who's best player available at the 16th overall pick who's not Aaron Glenn's guy, and then the number 2 overall pick, a pass rusher who's the best pass rusher available, not necessarily Aaron Glenn's guy. Hopefully, in both cases, Aaron Glenn's guy is also the best player available. That would be, a happy marriage, but just best player available. And with the draft, this is how I think we should judge Muji. Every free agent could be a miss. Hopefully the short-term contracts, but every free agent can be a miss. If he hits on the draft, I think he's good. We need to keep him around. Remember, champions are built through the draft. If Darren Muji can hit on the draft always and miss in free agency, I would make that trade, frankly. And of course, if Darren Muji fails at getting good free agents and fails at drafting players, well, there's always Arch Manning.